This video is brought to you by my patrons and sponsored by CoolStuffInc.com. At some point in every Magic player's life, they will be asked the question, what is your favourite card? And the answer is always instructive, especially if they say Pot of Greed, thus revealing themselves to be an imposter and a direct threat to your immediate safety. For many, their favourite card may be the leader of their most cherished commander deck, or a card that led them to their first ever FNM 5-0, or it could simply be the first card they ever encountered which sold them on Magic the Gathering as a game to play. Hello, spicy people of the internet. I'm Spice 8-Rack, aka Human in the Streets, Dublin basement flat in tax season, and I get asked this question a lot because as a niche internet micro-celebrity, it's a great icebreaker. Of course, I'm also always down for a spirited conversation about the works of Kwame Ture or ask my perspective on the new union movement, but I'm fine with just getting card questions. Look, it's fine. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. I don't even know why I brought it up. Because of my work, I think people assume that my favourite card must be the Rack. It is the namesake of my channel after all. Or maybe it's Slowbad, the original version that I always keep banging on about, not the near sacrilegious Phyrexianized one. Looking through my videos, there are any number of cards that you may suspect as being my favourite. So when I do tell people that my favourite Magic the Gathering card is in fact an uncommon removal spell that hasn't seen standard printing since before I even started playing the game, that I've only ever mentioned briefly in passing once 3 years ago, there's a certain air of confusion and disappointment as they realise there's not much chance a nearby vendor stocks it, much less that they have a copy on hand for me to sign. And when I then tell them that not only is this my favourite Magic card for how it makes me feel, but also that I think it may be one of the most superb tools for introducing and explaining both the core gameplay tenets and emotional heart of the game to new players, whilst also being one of the most balanced game pieces of all time, they usually start to look for ways to exit the conversation. But they can't, because I've backed them into a corner at the board game cafe they approached me at, and now they're going to listen to my video essay on why Jumpstart 2022's version of Goblin Grenade is, to me, the greatest Magic the Gathering card of all time. Yes, that's right. I'm not trapped here with you, you're trapped here with me! Goblin Grenade, for those of you who haven't heard of it, is a sorcery for 1 red mana where, after paying the additional cost of sacrificing a goblin permanent, you can deal 5 damage to any target. The Jumpstart 2022 version is the only one printed thus far with this simplified rules text. Yes, believe it or not, there was once a time where draft uncommons didn't have a whole novella printed on them. That's more of a joke for the professor, actually. I'm perfectly fine with complicated rules texts. I like the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh cards are completely indecipherable. I think that actually whips ass. The simplicity of this card is truly something to behold. Only 1 mana, 1 direct effect, 1 clear and thematic additional cost. The only thing holding it back from being on the level of Lightning Bolt Simple is the fact that it's a sorcery, the second most complicated card type in the entire game. For the record, here's a chart of me ranking all of the different card types in Magic based on how complicated they are. Do you want me to explain it for you? Well, fuck off, I'm not gonna. You can show this card to any person unfamiliar with Magic and they will be able to fully understand the point of this card and how to play it. But under that simplicity lies a depth of both tactical gameplay decisions and intriguing world building. To begin with the former, this card requires you to make a sacrifice in order to play it, an inherently tactical call which will inevitably teach new players casting the spell about threat assessment, both of their own board but also their opponents. Losing a 1-1 to kill a 5-5 doesn't seem that bad, but what if my opponent only has 7 life? Should I save my creature now, take some hits and then use it to close out that last chunk of health? What if the only goblin I control is my goblin war chief? Do I want to sacrifice his cost reduction for 5 damage now, or do I want to hold off and hope I survive to draw a more expendable goblin? What if they have a counterspell? That'll teach me to 2-for-1 myself whilst my opponent has 1 white mana open? Always expect mana tithe. Our game stores are full of rogues and bastards waiting for your guard to slip for even 1 moment. Experienced players will rarely find themselves in conundrums as to when and if to cast Goblin Grenade, but whilst you're learning the game, this card presents a fascinating microcosm of Magic's tactical inner workings. One of the first things new players learn when they start to win games is to prioritise board control over direct damage, and then along comes this card which says, yeah, but what if you sacrificed a teensy bit of board control for a quarter of your opponent's life? But this mechanical depth arrives hand in hand with brilliant balance. A few months ago, Sam from Rhystic Studies released a video on Magic's Wrath style effects, and pointed out how, from the get-go, Magic's original designers nailed the balance between the gameplay effect and cost of Wrath of God. 4 mana is the accepted baseline cost for symmetrical board wipes, with mana added or removed for additional benefits or drawbacks for the caster respectively, and it's been that way since day one. Goblin Grenade 2 joins the ranks of perfect on the first try cards. Not as versatile as Lightning Bolt, itself a card which exists in eternal debate as to whether or not its cost is too good for certain formats, but dealing far more damage, being able to dispatch all but a double-digit fraction of Magic's pantheon of creatures, or reducing your opponent's health by a full 25%. Something that many early players may clock with this card is that a full playset of Goblin Grenades produces exactly the right amount of damage to take an opponent out in any non-commander format. This low mana cost, yet highly specific additional cost, which requires you to be playing a certain deck in a certain way in order to even cast it, allows this card to remain in a healthy mechanical middle ground, far from game-breaking, but also far from useless. The second hidden depth this card has is a slightly more subtle one. Imagine you've never heard of Magic the Gathering before and you're presented with this card. Most of the language and imagery here is either basic enough for you to grasp without any knowledge of the rules, sacrificing, dealing damage, additional costs, etc., or arcane enough that you may as well disregard it for now until somebody explains it to you. Sorcery, the red mana pip, the expansion symbol, etc. However, there is one semi-familiar term here which implies something existing beyond the borders of this card. The word goblin. Here we engage with the central dialectical notion of the unity of opposites. The existence of a card which requires goblins to use depends on the coexistence of goblins to use it with. Look, that shit would have gotten a fucking round of applause in academic circles. Leave me alone. The implication of Goblin Grenade lifts but a corner of the curtain to the rest of Magic the Gathering. Like Hero's Downfall or Greasefang as well, the inclusion of a word or idea absent from the card itself hints at something further to be discovered in order to better understand the card you're looking at. Opening a foil M13 Goblin Grenade was, for me, the moment when Magic transitioned from a game that I could play with my friends using our limited pool of intro decks and foolishly purchased booster packs into a new fixation. A thing to be explored and understood. A river once splashed around in, whose source, depths and estuary I now needed to know. We also cannot talk about evocative imagery and implication without talking about the elephant in the room. Or rather, the dynamite in the goblin. But first, a word from our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com. I say a word from them, but I write these scripts, so really it's a word from me, the gay little freak who lives in your phone. Cool Stuff Inc. has fucking loads of stuff. Singles, sealed product, deck boxes, singles, playmats. Did I mention singles? And by using my code SPICE at the checkout, you can get those singles into your area with 5% off of any order. Why, I misplaced my foil Goblin Grenade years ago, an event that genuinely haunts me a little bit. But if I used my code SPICE to order a new one off of CoolStuffInc.com, I'd save 2 cents. I maybe should have used a larger order as an example. The discount works better with bigger purchases. That's how percentages work. Go to CoolStuffInc.com and take their products for cheaper than usual with code SPICE. The more people who do that, the more likely it is that they will continue to work with me, and I just can't handle being left again. Anyway, Goblin Grenade has cool artwork. Kev Walker's phenomenal artwork is not the first that Goblin Grenade sported. That honour goes to Ron Spencer, and also Dan Frazier and Christopher Rush at the same time. Fallen Empires, the set which debuted Goblin Grenade, was printed during an experimental phase at Wizards of the Coast, where multiple artwork versions of cards could be found in the same set, with sometimes 4 different art and flavor text versions of each card being printed next to each other. At the time, this was widely considered to be a gameplay headache, where board states and draft picks became temporarily confusing, where unusual art versions of known cards made them appear to be entirely different entities. After Fallen Empires, Wizards stopped printing cards like that for many years. Up until the point where they realised they could milk more dollars out of people if they just marketed the idea of it better. But, if you like different artwork on your Magic cards, that's fine. You can always draw your own versions and use them as proxies. What are they gonna do? Call the card police? Oh shit, they might call the card police, what the fuck? Regardless, this makes Goblin Grenade a card with one of the most star-saturated lists of artistic contributors. Kev Walker is of course a prolific artist for Magic the Gathering, producing work for almost every set since Mirage. Ron Spencer is similarly iconic, with his scenes of contained chaos jumping off of the frames of Magic cards since the game's first set. Both Dan Frazier and Christopher Rush have comparatively thinner Magic portfolios than these other 2 artists, but their names should be instantaneously recognisable. They are of course the artists who produced the original 5 Moxen and Niall Sylvain, respectively. What? No, loads of people care about Niall Sylvain, it's not just me. So what if Rush also painted the original Black Lotus? Who wants a crummy mana artifact that doesn't even stick around after you use it? Sisay's Ring, however, now that's some real colourless ramp. God, we used to be a proper country. The art of all 3 of these versions of the card have their own merits, serving what we'd call in critical theory terms Joker energy. Cesar Romero, Heath Ledger, and awful violent misogynist Jack Nicholson, respectively. But meritorious as these 3 pieces are, the, again, simplicity of Walker's version is just perfection. The soft, cloudy background, implying both height in the air, but also a distant explosion off frame with the orange glow in the bottom left-hand corner, maybe being the propellant which first launched this doomed goblin. Whilst the other 3 pieces of artwork show a goblin either in total, almost malicious control of their explosive doom, or fully unaware of the rapidly arriving consequences of their actions, Walker's goblin stares forward in terror. His arms bound in a hasty tangle of rope, his hands and feet trailing uselessly behind him along with the faint tail of the fuse's smoke, defining the curve of his movement and implying that we see him at the apex of his flight, an Acme-branded Icarus. The flared nostrils of his guiding nose are almost as wide as the sticks of TNT stuffing his mouth, looking for all intents and purposes like a suckling pig by way of high fantasy Looney Tunes. This, to me, strikes at the very core of what it means to be a goblin in Magic the Gathering, the butt of some cosmic joke, the living punchline to a world slapstick routine, unwilling fodder represented in game with a variety of sacrifice effects which specifically call for goblin ammunition. To witness Kev Walker's Goblin Grenade is to understand the heart of this game world's goblins. And even with all of this analysis, there is yet more brilliance that can be found in this Goblin Grenade. I've already talked at length about this card's flavour text in a video I made about comedy in Magic, but it bears repeating that the juxtaposition of this scene, one of such simple cartoon violence, with the sober, dry, near academic text of "Don't underestimate the aerodynamic qualities of the common goblin," is truly sublime. We can imagine ourselves, a battle tactician, gazing up from our tent to this scene, a goblin hanging in the air, our angle of view disguising the true dimensions of his pot belly, perhaps itself full of explosives, making him look almost missile-like as he soars over us. He doesn't see us. His desperate eyes point dead ahead. Maybe he is calculating which cause of death will catch him first, the crunch of his skull against the distant battlefield, or the unthinkable devastation of the lit payload in his mouth. We can imagine our seasoned and educated persona forgetting the crush of battle around us, the cause of the war, the needless slaughter of life, all for our mind to coalesce around this single, ridiculous observation. One mustn't underestimate the aerodynamic qualities of the common goblin, we think. Maybe considering noting it down for future engagements, as the petrified sentient bomb lands with a thud through the roof of the canteen tent and detonates, bringing us back from this surreal moment of pitch black comedy into the grim reality of the present. There are a lot of magic cards I like, and a select few that I truly love, but if I hadn't have drawn that foil goblin grenade from that random M12 booster pack I bought, not knowing that all the cards in it had rotated out of standard the year before, I genuinely doubt Magic would have become as big a part of my life as it is today. Goblin Grenade, to me, isn't just a great Magic card, but it's a card that encapsulates all that Magic was and should be again. My partner and I are in the process of moving in together, which is very nice and exciting, but also very time consuming, so I hope you can appreciate that the longer video I had planned to come out next, my retrospective on Tarkia, was put on the back burner so that I could A, do the move, and B, produce this video to tide you all over up until that point. This is also a much shorter video than usual, and so my credit section, though it speeds up your screen now, won't be read out. I've had the very amazing problem of having so many people who support me that I'd add a quarter of this video's runtime on top of itself by reading them all out here, and annoyingly that'd be awful for metrics because folks don't tend to stick around through the credits. Don't worry, I'll be reading them all out whenever the fucking Tarkia video comes out. Christ knows how long that's gonna take. But what's your favourite Magic card? Do you have one that you don't think many people know about? Is there something special about it that connects you to it in a way other cards simply can't hope to achieve? Please do let us all know in the comments below. And if you'd like to support my channel and help pad my bank account whilst we sort out the move, then please consider heading over to my Patreon and signing up there. Bless you all, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay spicy.